The tides are rising, fast and silent. In just the last decade, sea levels have crept up enough to flood basements in Miami, turning what was once dry land into soggy streets. Imagine walking through a downtown that's slowly turning into a swamp. That's not a future scenario, it's happening now. Even iconic subway systems, New York's famed tunnels, Miami's Metrorail, Bangkok's Underground, are feeling the pinch of salty water, corroding rails and threatening to shut down whole lines within 10 years. The economic fallout is massive. A single centimeter of rise can erase billions from coastal economies, wiping out tourism revenue, sinking real estate values, and inflating insurance premiums faster than any stock market crash. And it's not just money. Ecosystems are scrambling. Mangrove forests are forced inland, pulling fish and bird populations with them, reshaping the food chain and erasing centuries-old habitats. In response, governments are already drafting blueprints for relocation. Entire neighborhoods are earmarked for move, with massive budgets allocated to build floating districts and resilient infrastructure that can ride the waves instead of being swallowed by them. The clock is ticking, and the ocean shows no mercy. But that's just the beginning. In Part 2, we go deeper. Welcome back to our deep dive series on the mounting threat of rising sea levels. In Part 1 we covered the basics, now we examine the precise data, mechanisms, and professional perspectives that define today's coastal crisis. First, the historical record. Tide gauge stations erected in the 1800s, such as London's Greenwich and New York's Battery, logged a modest 15 centimeters of rise by the mid-20th century. Yet when the Topex/Poseidon satellite began ocean height measurements in 1992, scientists identified an unprecedented 3.3 millimeters per year increase, a rate that accelerated dramatically after the turn of the millennium. The decade from 2005 to 2015 alone marked the fastest sea level rise in the instrumented record, confirming that historical trends are not static baselines but evolving trajectories. Turning to the science, two primary forces drive this surge. Thermal expansion, where warming waters occupy more volume, explains roughly 40% of observed rise. As global average temperatures have climbed 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, ocean layers expand, especially in the tropics and mid-latitude gyres. Simultaneously, glacial melt from Greenland and Antarctica contributes about 30%, a process amplified by feedback loops. Meltwater darkens ice surfaces, reducing albedo and accelerating further melting. Compounding these global factors, local land subsidence, pronounced in deltas like the Mekong and Mississippi, magnifies sea level impact, turning a universal rise of 0.2 centimeters into neighborhood-scale inundation. What do leading experts say about the implications? Dr. Jessica Hayes, senior climatologist at NOAA, quantifies that each 10-centimeter increment adds roughly $13 billion in property damage across U.S. coastal municipalities, a figure that compounds with each subsequent rise. In Europe, Dr. Hans Müller of the German Institute for Water Management warns that historic port cities such as Hamburg and Rotterdam face cumulative flood risk that could exceed current insurance reserves by 2035. Urban planner Carlos Mendez, advising Shanghai's municipal government, points out that today about 22% of the metropolis already lies beneath the projected 2050 sea level benchmark, threatening critical transport hubs and residential districts. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's sixth assessment report underscores that, without aggressive mitigation, 8 out of 10 megacities may experience regular tidal flooding by century's end. These insights reveal why the issue transcends environmental discourse. It is an economic, social, and geopolitical challenge demanding coordinated policy. Adaptive strategies ranging from managed retreat to seawall reinforcement and nature-based solutions like mangrove restoration must be informed by precise local data and global climate models. As we confront the undeniable reality of a shifting shoreline, the stakes for infrastructure, livelihoods, and cultural heritage become starkly apparent. Stay with us as we continue this exploration. In Part 3, we uncover what mainstream sources won't tell you. Imagine standing on a bustling pier, the city skyline glittering, while a hidden force slides beneath your feet. You hear the gulls, feel the breeze, but something else is listening, an ancient whisper of water that refuses to stay on the shore. For decades scientists warned of rising seas, yet the most striking danger never made the headlines, a quiet invasion that starts long before the first wave reaches the promenade. It begins at dawn, when the sun paints the horizon in soft gold. Beneath that golden light, tiny veins of seawater creep through porous sand, slipping into the underground aquifers that support every skyscraper, every subway, every hidden utility pipe. Engineers label the seepage as harmless, a minor fluctuation in groundwater levels. But each droplet is a tiny soldier, carving a path through concrete foundations, weakening the grip of the earth on our beloved coastal metropolises. The question looms: how many years will it take before the invisible tide becomes undeniable? As the silent tide gathers strength, the next secret unfolds beneath the city's iconic bridges. Steel ribs, once thought invincible, are now feasting on the salty intruder. Corrosion starts from the inside, out of sight, turning gleaming iron into brittle rust. Pedestrians cross obliviously, commuters rush past, unaware that the very arteries of their urban lifeblood are slowly turning to dust. When a crack appears in a historic overpass, most blame age or traffic load, never suspecting the sea's slow poison. The mystery deepens, urging us to ask, what price will we pay for overlooking the quiet decay? Then comes the moment when the hidden water can no longer be contained. The tide, now amplified by climate's relentless push, assaults the low-lying districts that once thrived on commerce and culture. Streets that once echoed with music become rivers of murky gray. Emergency sirens pierce the night, but the true alarm is the silent erasure of centuries-old neighborhoods, their stories washed away before the world even registers a new line on a map. The city's heartbeat skips, and the revelation hits hard: rising sea levels are not merely a future threat, they are an active, present reality reshaping our urban landscapes piece by piece. So why does this matter to you, the viewer scrolling through endless content? Because the next chapter will reveal a hidden network of solutions, innovations that could turn the tide in our favor if only we dare to look beyond the surface. The story is far from over. Each clue you uncover brings you one step closer to understanding the true scale of the crisis and the untapped power lying dormant beneath the waves. Stay with us, because the answer to the mystery lies in the very next segment, where science meets surprise, and the impossible becomes possible. When you witness the hidden currents reshaping skylines, you'll understand why every drop matters. Now that you know the truth, Part 4 will change how you see this forever. Welcome back to the final installment of our 4-part series on rising seas. In this masterclass, we synthesize centuries of climate data, the physics of oceanic expansion, and the socio-economic ramifications for the world's most vulnerable metropolises. We begin by tracing the paleoclimate record. Ice core analyses, sediment cores, and early tide gauge logs each confirm a steady postglacial rise, punctuated by rapid pulses during the meltwater pulse events of the early Holocene. Fast forward to the satellite era, and we see an unprecedented acceleration. Global mean sea level now climbs over 3 mm per year, a rate nearly triple the 20th century average. The drivers are twofold: warming water expands in volume, and meltwater from Greenland and Antarctica pours into the oceans. Yet the story is not uniform. Regional subsidence can double local rise, especially where soft sediments compress under the weight of growing cities. Storm surges, once rare, now intersect with higher baselines, turning once manageable high tides into catastrophic floods. Real-world impacts illustrate the abstract numbers. Miami's low-lying streets flood daily during king tides, prompting the city to draft a $400 million adaptation plan that includes elevating roads and installing pumps. Jakarta's relentless sinking, driven by unregulated groundwater pumping, has already forced the relocation of government offices to more stable ground, a move many view as a prelude to a larger retreat. Venice's famed canals see aqua alta events more frequently, prompting debates over the controversial Mohs floodgates system. In Dhaka, monsoon-driven surges combined with sea level rise threaten the lives of 20 million people, underscoring how climate change disproportionately harms low-income populations. Looking ahead, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change projects a half-meter to a full-meter rise by century's end under high-emission scenarios. That translates into the loss of entire neighborhoods in New York, Shanghai, and Lagos, unless bold mitigation or adaptation measures are taken. Policymakers grapple with whether to retreat, build higher, or invest in nature-based defenses such as mangrove restoration and living shorelines. Economists argue that the cost of inaction dwarfs the expense of proactive planning, while ecologists warn that engineering solutions alone cannot preserve biodiversity. Recent legislative initiatives, the EU's Climate Adaptation Fund and the U.S. Coastal Resilience Act, seek to channel billions into resilient infrastructure and ecosystem restoration, marking a shift toward integrated, forward-looking strategies. The stakes are clear: rising seas are not a distant threat but a present reality, reshaping economies, displacing communities, and testing governance at every scale. By understanding the past, the mechanisms, the lived experiences, and the policy landscape, we equip ourselves to make informed decisions that protect both people and planet. If this series gave you value, subscribe. More deep dives coming every week.